yeah, so I'm just dope. So I'm gonna pass it to Rita, also introduce the space.
All right, y'all. So honored to be here in this collective gathering, thinking about Black girlhood, our mothers and home. I am Reelaviolette Bottts-Ward. Y'all could just call me Ree. I am a doctoral candidate at UC Berkeley with my homegirl Kerby. And at UC Berkeley, I'm researching Black women's healing spaces. And so much of what I've had the privilege and honor to do with my life is to center Black women and our healing. I am founder of Black Women Healing, and so this event is also hosted with Black Women Healing, and I am the author of Mourning My Inner Black Girl Child. So we're going to get into these texts today, y'all. We're going to be talking about my book, baby, and Jasmine Mans' book, baby, and it's lit, and we so happy to be here. So I'm going to have Kerby introduce us, and then we will have some poetry reading from Jasmine, some poetry reading from me. Then we'll dive into a Q&A.
Dope. All right, so this is cool. I don't know, I'm hecka nervous, y'all. Like, I be doing hundreds of events, you don't even understand, but this is an honor and a pleasure to introduce Jasmine Mans. Jasmine Mans is a Black American poet, artist from Newark, New Jersey. She graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison with a BA in African American Studies. Her debut collection of poetry, Chalk Outlines of Snow Angels, was published in 2012. Mans is the resident poet at the Newark Public Library. She was a member of the Strivers World Collective. Thank you, Jasmine, so much for being here and take us away.
All right. I'm nervous too, girl. So let's see how this gonna go. Thank y'all for having me. I am always like very honored and emotional when I get to share space with Black women. So thank you for creating that space for me. We host these variables. We try to leverage language as a means to a truth. We learn on our paths, perhaps, that certain stories have no language nor require one. There is something I want to honor here. I want to honor the silent story, the emotions unaccompanied by human language. I want to honor the weight of the stillness. I want to honor the silent ceremony between mother and daughter, a ceremony of blood and becoming, because I know we exist with a heavy and stubborn resemblance. I know the distance between mother and daughter and how we may be many burnt bridges as well as the wealth of brick and clay ready to be made anew from everything unmade of us. I am learning my mother's song, staring into her silence as it stares back at me, wondering of its depths and wandering through it. I don't know all of her pain, or if it can be held with two hands, but she looks back at me with girlish eyes, wanting to be remembered for something I do not know her as. Daughters have questions for their mothers, questions made up of no words, but we host these variables. A woman stretched her body for me, and I have no words to describe her in wholeness, but without shame, I want you to know her, my mama. Speak to me of my mother. Who was she? Tell me about the girl my mother was before she traded in all her girl to be my mother. What did she smell like? How many friends did she have before she had no room? Before I took up so much space in her prayers, who did she pray for? Benay's three babies. Benay had three children, C-sections with all three, two boys and one girl. Each of them would have stayed inside her and she would have let them because she loved them babies that kind of way. They gave her gas, chest pains, and set right on her bladder, but they were her babies. Antoine was the first, the one that would usher her into motherhood. He was the baby that made Tyrone marry Benay, the one she'd get dressed and flaunt around, The baby every aunt had a naked picture of. He was the baby that got Auntie Boo off drugs. She tells folks that God sent Antoine to save her, and she let him. Jasmine was the second baby, delivered at St. Michael's Hospital, screamed when she was born, like all babies do, but she didn't stop, a colic baby. Cried like she already knew how much pain the world had in it. Jasmine sent Benet into a tired depression. She gave up sleep for that little girl. And her job at the bank said that she didn't have time to make anything of her hands but cradle. Sometimes the neighbors would come over and hold the baby. Those women knew what it was like to have 3 babies, a working husband, and to be left all alone with the smallness. LT was the last baby, named after Tyrone, the one they couldn't afford, and truthfully, they couldn't afford any of them. Tyrone got his second job when LT was born, worked all 7 days out of the week because that's what men are supposed to do. LT was the biggest and still is, weighed 10 pounds when he was born. Benet's favorite one, and the one that loves his mama, has his nana's eyes, a happy baby, the one she fed turkey legs to and pork bacon to, the baby that sucked the chicken bone, the one she held on to the longest, the lightest, and most sensitive of all of the 3. There were 3 babies and a woman stumbling into motherhood. No money, an apartment in Newark. She learned how to cook with those children, learned what spaghetti and meatloaf could do. She prayed to God for her babies that they learned a vocabulary that she did not have. Prayed to God that he spare her 3 Black babies when the plague came, because she was their mama and she was going to do right by each of them. I wrote this piece, period, after a brilliant poet named Dominique Christina, and she wrote about her daughters, period, and it made me think about period and blood. And mothers teach their daughters how to hide the blood, how to wash out the stains upon arrival, to pretend like the blood isn't there or theirs. Mothers teach their daughters to make sure the blood doesn't have an odor, to never let the blood rise, to never let the stench rise. Mothers teach their daughters to be misleading about the amount of blood and the weight that it adds to the body. Mothers teach their daughters to never bleed out, to not use the blood as an excuse, even when the blood is the only excuse. I imagine if we were at a poetry slam, we would all be like snapping or something. But I feel y'all here with me. I feel y'all here with me. Yeah. I don't know if anybody here has a coming out story. However, I wrote this piece here when I came out and I was going on one of my first dates with my girlfriend, and my mother looked at me at the kitchen table and she was like, "You're gonna be a dyke now." And oftentimes when we are coming out, people, it's interesting what words and what memories imprint. That people say a lot, that my mother and my father and so many people have said a lot to me. And I don't remember all of the things that folks have said to me, but I remember 2 specific things. I remember when my mother called me a dyke at the kitchen table, but I also remember when my grandmother said, "I don't care what you are mine." I don't know where your memories exist, but this book was also an opportunity to reclaim memories. And so when I wrote Mama Said Dyke at the kitchen table, it was like one of the ugliest things that a mother could say to her daughter. But I got the opportunity to reclaim that moment by way of writing this poem. Mama said dyke at the kitchen table. Mama said, "So you gonna be a dyke now?" As if she meant to say, "Didn't I raise you better than that? Don't you know I ain't raised no dyke? Don't you know you too pretty to be a dyke? Why you gonna embarrass us like that? You scared no man gonna love you? You scared of men? Some man hurt you? Who hurt you? Mama said, so you gonna be a dyke now? As if she meant to say, don't you know how hard it already is for women like us? Why you gonna go and make it harder on yourself? I don't want you to know that kind of pain. This world ain't sweet on those kinds of women. I don't want another reason to be scared for you. Mama said, so you gonna be a dyke now? As if she meant to say, I'm scared for you. I think this piece here, monologue, mother yells at insert name of black girl. It's one of the hardest pieces for me to perform because I truly have never read it out loud. And it's the dialogue that I would assume that my mother would have with me based on her language in so many situations. And I feel like this might speak to the narrative of so many mothers, black mothers, who navigate their daughters' mouths and an understanding of the police. Monologue, mother yells at insert name of black girl here. Mother, don't you know these white folks ain't gotta listen to you, ain't gotta tolerate you, don't gotta like you, don't gotta respect you. They don't gotta make sure you make it home. They don't gotta make sure you make it home to me. They don't care that you got family or a mother to come home to. You think these cops care about me? They don't care about me. Don't you get it? You starting to think you worth something, huh? Starting to think that they won't kill you? Starting to think that they won't hurt you? You ain't nothing but a big dumb fool, a big fool. They ain't scared to kill you. Is this what you want? To be killed? You foolish enough to think that you can talk yourself out of your own death? You want to die? You want me to have to come looking for you? You want me to have to get a call about you? You want to show some officer you smarter than him? That's what this is about. That's what you want to prove, that you smarter. You want to die for being smarter. You want to die because you didn't know when to stop, when to close your fucking mouth. You never know when to stop. You don't know how far is too far. They're going to kill your black ass. Just wait. Keep playing with them police. You hear? They're going to get you. Going to get you good, and I won't be there to protect you. Do you hear me? That mouth going to get you in a whole heap of trouble that your ass can't get you out of. You think it's funny, and it's not funny. You got one more time, girl. Next time you won't be so lucky. You hear? A haiku for Sandra. There was a hanging. Your fingerprints weren't there. You were not either. I got a few more for y'all, if that's all right. I used to know her. Her eyes were not the same after her husband passed. Her hair thin like a dandelion in an early wind. The whites around her eyes moved on, as did her smile. The refrigerator smelled of a depressive spoil. Uncertain of what held the most heavy, the sadness or the fat that faithfuled her belly. She let herself go and her children long before the babies could memorize the teachings. I remember who she was. I know her heart to be a damp place, still fertile but unbecoming. And it weathered as so. I don't want to speak about her this way, this woman I once knew, but to not speak about her this way would mean maybe to not speak about her at all. And I don't know what's worse. And I don't know what's worse, her waiting to die or just not waiting for nothing. She don't be waiting for nothing at all.
Sheesh.
I get to read some of my most favorite pieces. South 14th Street. Nana's house smells like cigarettes. Today, Nana got open heart surgery. She still drinks Pepsis. She's still strong. She still smokes, but her heart don't trust her Well, not like it used to. Nana smells like Newports. It reminds us that things caught smoke, but never did they ever catch fire. My grandfather died in bed with my Nana. She said she saw his soul soar right out of their attic window. He left his body in that bed to remind her that even without breath, she could still wake up to him. He said he left silently, didn't want to wake her up out of her sleep as he got ready to leave, kissed her on the cheek, gathered himself at the foot of the bed, and didn't take anything with him, not even her smile. Nana is selling the house on 14th Street, the one off Clinton Avenue, the house she was married in, the olive house with the hunter green trim, the house with the uneven driveway that skins the chin of every car that tries to pull up, even the nice cars. The wood is just rotten, the pipes need replacing, and Nana's just too old to maintain it all. The neighbors ain't like they were back in the day, and things have changed since Pop died, and it's different without no one round to take out the trash and to shovel the steps. I get to also perform one of my favorite pieces. I was commissioned by the mayor of Newark to write something about my city, and this is the piece that I came up with. The 39 bus makes stops in the South Ward. Gloria Brown lives on the South Ward, on South 14th Street. She served as a lunch lady at George Washington Carver Elementary School before she retired. At 12 p.m. every day, she gave Calvin Chambers an extra milk with his lunch because he was my little brother's best friend and our next door neighbor. She fed Calvin until he was old enough to go to high school. His older brother, Al Tariq, died somewhere in a high-speed police chase. His funeral was held at Cotton. Bergen Street stands like an old man who was an artist back in the day, but has since painted his kidneys a whiskey color. Around here, you don't need to be Muslim to say Assalamu alaikum, because when you walk into King's restaurant, there'll be a 4'11" black woman who will ask you for your God and your order, and she don't care if you've made up your mind yet. You got 10 seconds to respond. Assalamu alaikum, my sister. I'll go with catfish, cheese eggs, cheese grits, wheat toast with butter and jelly, and an uptown, please. I come from a city that always had enough home to come home to. A city that sometimes only responds to its Muslim name. A city that rolls its eyes and holds its babies tight on the 27 bus because it's going to be 4 more months before mama gets a new car. So backdoor bus driver, backdoor, we got places to go. The Source of Knowledge bookstore be the only black bookstore downtown, and they'll tell you about Broad Street before all of them white folks got here. It's summer 2020, and all of Benet and Tyrone's 3 black children graduated from college. They keep their degrees in the china cabinet, and when they cook, they wear those "my baby went to a good school" t-shirts. There is a mother in a West Ward praying her child through college, and sometimes she'll sing it, and other times she'll scream it, but that prayer is going to last her all of the days of her life. And the water ain't clean here, but Auntie Joyce is. And she been clean for a minute now, got an apartment, and she sees her grandbabies every week. And in the Leslie Street Block Association, they still have block parties. They be a group of old black folks who never got scared of their grandbabies to celebrate them, or too scared of them to pray for them. So Miss Shorter gonna have a cookout, Uncle Charlie gonna have a cookout, Keisha gonna have a cookout, and you ain't gonna worry about the roaches because mama said everybody gonna stay in that room and she ain't gonna wanna hear nobody lift a finger or move a muscle until she says so. And the street gonna be blocked off and the city gonna sing. And then they're gonna listen to trap music because all of her grandbabies are in the same backyard at the same time. And when the electric slide comes on, the people going to dance, and your daddy, he going to show up and he going to bring you your new bike, and he going to promise to never leave. And Nana made potato salad. She made potato salad and she mixed it with her whole arm, and it's going to be 8 p.m. until the sun comes up. So you better stop by here now. You better stop by here now. You better come get you a plate. My fairy godmother left today. took up her wings and fluttered away, heard the Holy Ghost hummed a note that rang in her soul. Made us believe that there was really something special about a Christmas Eve right in the middle of the ghetto. There may not be anything under this tree, no gifts from three kings, but boy, can that girl sing. Holding notes as strong as wooden Baptist church pews, with back pockets holding the Bibles and sins of some men who would scurry away but find an early Sunday morning to come back for them, chasing a sound that could turn a pumpkin into a chariot. Made us believe that Cinderella could be a brown girl with a chance at forever if she had a little faith in some measuring tape, a little glitter and a whisper that could grant you one last wish or a last kiss. God placed you in the dreams of every brown girl with a fairy tale in her heart and a prayer stumbling up the stairs of her throat with no proof that anyone could ever hear it. When we applauded your name, could you hear it? When you were drowning, could anybody hear it? Why'd you have to be the one to remind us that the clock strikes 12, that we just die too soon, that some girls will really end up naked in their bathrooms, that the curtains can just close on a high note, that you can find heaven and a quick fix on the same street, and the bricks leaving you with regrets that would run your throat dry, that would make you take some secrets to the grave, yet can make a flower blossom right up out of concrete. Nork then folded her baby back into its soil, placed you between her palms in a psalm, a black girl with faith, as blind as the wind, yet as real as its whisper, forcing us all to remember that God can look at you, sins and all, and still think that you are beautiful enough to die for. Whitney, I believe in miracles because of you. Promise to tell my daughter about you, about the day that God turned 1 million mice into men that would carry your body to the gates of heaven. I believe that there is a glass slipper and a pair of wings for you and every girl from North with a tree, that it is the most beautiful, beautiful ball, beckoning us all to just dance with somebody. My name is Jasmine Mans, and I'm ever so grateful to share my poems with you today.
Yes, let's give it up for the poet one time. Yes. That's beautiful. Wow. I was just like crying and everything over here. That was crazy. That was awesome. That was awesome. And we on time too. Okay, look at this. Okay, black folks. So we're gonna keep the party going with my homegirl, Reelaviolette Bottts-Ward is a homegirl artist and non-traditional community curator from Philadelphia, PA, a doctoral candidate in UC Berkeley's African Diaspora Studies Department. Ree's work centers Black women's healing spaces in Oakland. Her first book, Mourning My Black Girl Child, was published with Nomadic Press in 2021. Please visit blackwomxnhealing.com to stay connected with Ree and her work. And I just want to let you know, Ree is about it. This been my girl through the whole PhD journey, and I'm in geography and she's in Black studies, and I'm always on my.
And I gotta focus on that because I got my own stuff.
I was always on my economic tip and always like, fight the power, and all that, and then Ree's always like, how you healing, girl? How you doing, boo? How you checking in? And I you always need that, and so I really appreciate what Ree does, and so really listen to her poetry and really, really, really see what she's trying to do for us here. So take it away, Ree, and one love.
Thank you so much, Kerby. Thank you, Jasmine. Wow. I'm just so overwhelmed and so moved hearing from you and hearing your poetry. Y'all, when I tell you this gathering is such a dream come true, I got Black Girl Call Home and I just read the first poem and I was like, I felt like Jasmine was in my diaries. You know what I'm saying? I felt like she saw me in a way that I hadn't felt seen before. And, you know, my book had just came out and I was grappling with so many of the same things. And I literally wrote in my journal, I was like, it would be a dream to do this event called Black Girlhood, Our Mothers in Home. And I just prayed on it. I said, God, I would love to do this gathering because I just wanted to affirm how much this book made me feel so reflected. So thank you, Jasmine. Thank you so much for your words. Thank you for the labor of love that you poured into this book. And I'm so excited, y'all, to share a little bit of my book, baby, Mourning My Inner Black Girl Child, with y'all. I'm gonna just read a little bit from the introduction and then I will dive into a few poems, y'all. Thank y'all so much again for being here. I'm like so full and so grateful and so overwhelmed. All right. Whew. When I was a girl, I had a woman inside me. When I became a woman, I had a girl inside me. I never wanted to be a woman when I was a girl. I never wanted to be a girl when I was a woman. Who was to blame for this fragmentation, this impossibility of a self, these wounds, the way they cut into my flesh with no warning, without my consent? Who is to blame for these blistered scars that do not scrub up off my arms and glow in the dark when I ain't sleeping? Who forced the hands of this suicide? Who is the cause of this death? At 27 years old, I will blame whiteness and its perceived supremacy. I will blame capitalism and its robbing of space, time, intimacy, the scarcity it produces, the ways it seeps into Black family and dictates who a mother can or cannot be to her children because of precarity. I will blame patriarchy and its promise to protect me. All the ways it lied to me, its failure to protect girls like me, its refusal to protect any girls at all, its inherent impossibility. The way it blends, bends, breaks, merges into rigidity at the interlocking of intersectional, ancestral, generational, gendered, racialized wounds, the way it secretes its demand for submission into the bloodline of every woman to wear cybered Bottts-Ward behind her name. I will not blame my mother, whose mother was the daughter of a woman raised by the formerly enslaved. I will not blame inner Black girls for battering and bruising in attempts to salve and soothe. I will not blame women who were Black and bruised for fumbling through the wilds of the West with no map, no mask, no compass, for inheriting elusive love languages birthed from the afterlife of slavery. My inner child is a Black mother's child. Her mother's inner child is a Black mother's child. Being the Black daughter of a Black mother in a nation rooted in hatred for your people is the foundation of the dysfunction within our families. Black girl childhood's been under attack since the birth of the first baby girl and the hold of the Middle Passage. Black girl childhood's been under attack since master's desire for premature wombs to produce the next generation of chattel slavery. This trauma, the impossibility of Black girlhood passed down by each generation of our mothers, is the context in which we come to know our generational wounds. Inner Black girl child, one word, affirms that the inner Black girl in each of us Black women had a right to her childhood. She rescued herself the best way she knew how from gendered, racialized, sexualized violence. She survived abuse that was generational, perpetual, pervasive. She was just a child, carrying the burdens of a woman, a child deserving of her youth. That child in each of us still suffers in the aftermath of her abuse. That child inside our mothers is still struggling too. We become women who work at love the best way we know how. No one ever taught us how to do this. No one ever taught us how to soothe this. I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit and read some of the poems, starting with what we call you on page 10. What we call you. Mother, never knew your name was Reelaviolette until age 10. All we ever knew you as was Mama. Mama, never knew your name was Loneliness until age 11. All we ever knew you as was Sunshine. Sunshine, never knew your name was Depression until age 12. All we ever knew you as was Home. Home, never knew you never existed until age 13. I'm gonna skip ahead a bit to page 67, A Conjuring of Maiden Names. Reelaviolette rolls off tongues like cursive. Gel pens paint L-shaped glory onto lineless page, spelling out love in childhood diaries as if Black girl ever knew its meaning. Reelaviolette rolls off tongues like romance, like first dance, like my mother's high school sweetheart. 1979 prom pageant, homecoming ball game, light wash vintage Levi jeans. Reelaviolette means things to my mother. Reelaviolette means things to me. Reelaviolette rolls off tongues like speaking in tongues, like lilies laid out cross dining room table, dipped in holy water, drenched in gold. Reelaviolette rolls off tongues like Creoles of La Place, like Louisiana po' boys, like memories lost, longed for, made up, like fictive kin. Bottts breaks down the flow of things. Bulky, ugly, chunky, clunky between your teeth. Bottts be daddy's daddy drinking, beating Ethel May. Bottts be darkness clouded by shame, silent secrets untold, childhoods forgotten. Bottts be burden, Bottts be baggage, Bottts be weight. Reelaviolette be dainty, delicacy, doodled pansies, potpourri, planted seeds, sunshine, blue skied, kisses on your cheek. Be neon crop tops and afro sheen. Reelaviolette be high yellow, got a fella, old school beauty, urban chic, Sunday swing, Jammer 7, roller rink, Motown at sundown. Detroit red, Detroit bred, Detroit fed. Be nostalgia for a time my mother came alive in, a longing for the city that grew her. Bottts be the patriarchy that suffocated Reelaviolette. Bottts be country, uncomfy, chunky, clunky, heavy on the tongue, heavy on the heart, but I have never known myself any other way. Bottts carry my stench, my sin, my soliloquy. I hate how hardening it feels on my tongue, but it is my father's and it is mine. Brittany Bottts be the name they gave to me. Bottts be the name I made for me. I let me remake me over. Bottts, Ward, Reelaviolette Bottts, Reelaviolette Ward, Reelaviolette Bottts-Ward. I am somebody's wife now. Ward will not be my undoing. Bottts was my mother's undoing. Reelaviolette was her mother's undoing. Cybert was her mother's undoing. Reelaviolette, Bottts-Ward, my name reclaims Reelaviolette. It will not be my undoing. My name, a secret attempt to put mama back together, but she is already undone. I romanticize Reelaviolette as my mother romanticizes herself to me. Sometimes pretty words hide pain real good. Sometimes pretty names mask shame real good. Sometimes pretty letters be in vain. Sometimes pretty women think pretty women are to blame. My mother's mother, swallowed whole by the same name I cling to. Reelaviolette be baggage, Reelaviolette be weight, Reelaviolette be trauma that look like sunshine. But it too is mine, it's mine. It is my mother's and it is mine. Every generation of woman in my bloodline mourns the name of her girlhood as she passes down his name to her daughters. There were only ever daughters. There are no more Reelaviolettes. My name will make warriors of the women who legacy forgot, of Bottts, of Cybert, of Reelaviolette. I'm gonna go to page 64, Pretty Little Fool. Bare as the day I was born, birthed in the basement of black, back bathed in holy water. Mama prayed for Pretty Little Fool, never wanted baby girl to know the world like she, cruel and unforgiving. I'm gonna go to the next page, 65. Music our mothers cried to. My mother cried to Anita Baker. Her mother cried to Miss Simone. Her mother cried to Gladys and the Pips, staring out windows alone. I cry to every woman, all the women of my bloodline do. And my unborn daughter dancing slow jazz in heaven. Yeah, she do too. The last piece I'm gonna read for y'all is called Black Holes, and it is on page 90. This one heavy, y'all. I just gotta get myself ready. Me, a Black woman who is a Black hole, holds close everything that is sacred. Me, a Black hole who is a mother to myself, holds close everything that is chaotic, floating like frictioned galaxies that escape my slit of wrist. Me, a Black girl gone wrong, holds close the black hole of a womb that ruptures each time I take me home. Me, whose unhealed holes made her not know herself. Me, with each Black hole in my heart, with each Black scar that scrapes my throat. Me, a Black girl who is also a Black hole, who be stuck in the hold of the wake. Me, who have no map to make sense of. Me, a whole ass Black girl, woman, child, womb of the wake, wandering soul. Me, who sensed something greater than flesh and spirit. Me, a collection of Black holes, a curation of the unclothed, a citation of bare-boned, naked, nude, unnurtured holes in every single Black girl, woman, child I know. Me, a mosaic of all the unwhole folks who claim Black and womb by their surname. Me, a compilation of catastrophe, an exhibition of the catastrophic Eurosphere that forced me into Black holes. Me, who is hurting from all those black holes. Me, a skin cell, me, an ink well, me, unwatered, me, a plucking out a root, me, a floating with no shoes, a feather with no grounding. Me, a moment of collapse in space-time, a sinking into my own black hole with hopes of coming back up whole. Me, a handful of honey, a hair strand of kink, a cloth pattern with memory, a gourd made for drinking, a psalm and a jazz made for thinking. Me and all the things that I never knew to love float into the abyss of me. Me. And the combination of every black hole our own rupture, a myth of bliss, we become unknown to ourselves, a Satan waiting to bloom. And that inner loving mother in me says, soon, black hole, you will learn how you survive, how you climbed yourself outside yourself right before your moon. Soon, black girl, you will learn the love of mystic darkness is what saved you. The sacred of her covering, the care of her hold on you, how she suck you in, make you stuck with sin just so you could return to you soon. You yearning, mourning, breathing black hole, you black woman child will thank your womb for rebirthing you, for renaming your black hole whole. Holder of all that is sacred, releaser of all that has wings, that which can afford to fly from you and find home in someone else's. Soon, my child, you will see that there could be no growth beyond black holes. That journeying deeper into some soil is the only way to work with your hands to heal the holes that summon you. Soon, someone will say something about a hatred for darkness and you will understand it as an anti-God, a hatred for holes, a refusing of whole. Soon you will realize that black girls with holes all learn to disguise themselves as you. Soon you will see in the learning of your womb that darkness always brings truth. Ashe, y'all. Thank y'all so much for rocking with me and Book Baby. So appreciate y'all being here in Healing and Sisterhood. And I'm going to turn it back over to my homegirl Kerby to get us into this Q&A, y'all.
Yes, yes. If we can unmute ourselves and just give round of applause. I know it's gonna probably be janky, but let's just do effort. Yes. Just clap for it. Yes. Let's do it.
Yay.
Yes.
Yes.
No, yeah, give people their flowers, you know. So really, okay, now mute yourselves again. Okay, I don't want no hiccups. All right, now we're good. Okay, great. I mean, this is awesome about like the virtual space, like that we all get to kind of be here together, and you know, that's awesome. I don't know where everyone's calling in from, but I think this is just going to be just an awesome opportunity to just dialogue and just learn about what it means to think about our relationships with our mothers, our girlhood, our communities, home. And so that's going to be the nature of this discussion. So for both Jasmine and Ree, you know, I have like about, 5 questions, but, they all kind of bleed into one another. So, we're all just going to kind of be vibing. And so, and then we're going to get into an audience Q&A. So, please put a question in the chat. You can directly message either me, Kerby Lynch, or directly message Chriselle Jackson. And then, we can do it that way. But yeah, just let's get into it. So the first question is, wow, thank you both. You all Man, y'all took me some places. Yeah. So with this first question, it's really trying to ponder our relationship with our mothers as Black women, and really both of you, really contending with having to really be like confronted with like, yo, my mom, like, whoa, like these kind of cutting deep, especially in Jasmine. She says, mothers teach their children how to hide the blood, um, which is deep, never let the stench rise. And then even you were even thinking about how you're even contending with all of this other aspect of Black womanhood, navigating gendered, racialized violence in this contemporary world we live in, right? With maybe without that direct guidance, right? But you navigating and healing through that. So, really, I just wanted to know both of you, in your poetry, how do you contend with your relationships to your mother as a Black woman, and just reflect on that. So let's have Jasmine kick it off.
I'm learning that the mother-daughter relationship has many, many complexities, and it shifts as well. And so, one thing that I learned, someone told me, it's okay to mourn the things that you wish you had. And so we have this understanding of what we wanted in mothers based probably upon the things we saw on TV. And then you have an understanding of motherhood based on what you learn in the world that you are deserving of. And so by chance, if you don't have a nurturing mother or a mother with an emotional vocabulary that supports you, first, it's okay to mourn what you don't have. Two, I've always set myself at the center of my mother's life as her daughter, and place this wealth of responsibility on her to be a good mom, to be a great mom, um, without understanding what good and great is and what her journey of trauma is in being a mother. And so after we mourn, we also relinquish responsibility from these women to have to perform for us, to have to perform motherhood for us. Um, and then as an adult, I'm also realizing um, that it is okay to be a friend to my mother. And I think that sometimes daughterhood is at odds with friendship because we want to hold our mothers to a standard of responsibility that in turn keeps us protected. And we want to feel protected because the moment that we don't feel protected by our mothers, we notice that we're women and we want to be somebody's daughter. And so what does it mean to step into friendship with your mother? And as we think about our own friendships with our friends, like our good friends, right? We think about how we relinquish judgment and how we give grace, and I'm talking maybe if we got good friendships, right? We give grace and we have a level of gentleness. And what do we seek in good friendships? We seek grace and gentleness and thoughtfulness and second chances, and you see the humanity. And so what I'm learning right now is to seek friendship in my mother. And then when I released this book, I feel like a weight of accountability came on me, because I can be 100 and say like, I'm a performer and I love a good performance, and I'm a good writer and I can write a good story, and I was writing good stories that were about my life. And then when the book became materialized, I had to be accountable to these relationships and the functions of them. And it was like, you wrote about being a daughter, but then it was just like I had to show up and be a daughter. And that's in how I communicate, and how I show up, and what does it mean to be present in my mother's life as another woman. And so friendship means it, like I'm hoping that being a friend to my mother actually makes me a woman. And so I hope that that answers a bit of the question.
Bit of it, a lot of it. Thank you. That was some deep reflection. Ray, what's good?
Wow, thank you so much, Jasmine. That hit me. My mama here, I know she was like, yes, tell my daughter that. Shout out to my mom. We have been on a journey, like me and my mom have been on a journey. I love you, mommy, so much. Thank you for being here and for always showing up for me. I hella resonated with what you said. Especially about the accountability. After a book comes out about your life, about your mother, this was really hard, y'all. This was really, really hard because I just had to be in my truth. And something that me and my mom have continued to talk about is the line between what's my story and what's her story. And that I do need to get her consent to tell her story. And I think I took a lot of liberties. I think I had a lot of entitlement. And even Jasmine, when you talked about that level of like tenderness and care and grace, I didn't always give my mom that because I think I came into this epiphany or this realization that that I didn't always get what I need, that I was really sitting with like, what did it mean to be the Black daughter of a Black mother who struggled with depression? And, I didn't understand what impact that had on me until I really began my own inner child journey, my inner child healing. That's what this book is really all about, like my relationship to my inner Black girl child. And I think so much that was coming up for me was feeling like, where was my mom? My mom was always in the bed, or, and I realized like, that's not the full story, but that's the story that was most prevalent for me when I was like facing the heaviness of my childhood years, because the story I had always told was I had the perfect mom and my mom was the best ever. And she took us to soccer practices. She put us in private school. She had us in college. Like my mom made my whole life possible. And there's many stories that we have about our mothers, and all of those stories can be true at once. But the moment that I came into realization that like my mother's depression deeply impacted me as a child, I developed so much like anger towards my mom. And it was exactly what Jasmine, what you were speaking to, like this feeling of like, you didn't give me what I needed. And I think that's what I was working through in the introduction was like, my mom didn't get what she needed and her mom didn't get what she needed, right? It's generation after generation of Black mothers mothering daughters the best way they know how, that like we weren't taught how to do this intergenerational healing work. And my mom worked so hard not to have our lives be what her life was. And to hear me say that I didn't get what I needed was like, heartbreaking for my mom, after she was like, your life was nowhere near as traumatic as mine. And yet my trauma is still valid because that was my truth as a little Black girl. Jasmine, your poem about period, like my memory of my period is like, my mom wasn't there, like my mom was traveling for work when I got my period, when I had my 10th birthday. So those are the things that like come up for me when I'm doing this inner child healing, that like these moments that were so important to my Black girlhood, feeling like my mom was missing. But that's what my memory is doing right now as an adult, stepping into the truth about my childhood and moving out of denial. And I went from one extreme to the other. And then this book came out at that extreme, so like the introduction was written when I was coming into more clarity about like, I can't blame my mother. I was blaming my mom because I was so angry and I felt lied to, and not lied to by my mom, but I just felt like my whole life was a lie. but because it was either my mother is perfect or my mother failed me. And there's so much in between, and I didn't even know. So much of my trauma was like black or white thinking, right? Like she could either be one or the other. And I didn't know how to let multiple things be true at once about my mom, about our relationship. And I'm leaning deeper and deeper into making peace with these multiple truths, like making peace with the fact that my mom struggled so much with her depression and yet still showed up in so many ways, right? And that doesn't negate or deny the truth about the trauma that I experienced, right? That both of those, like I'm learning how to extend my capacity to hold both of those things at once. And I think for us as Black women, we have been taught that our mothers have to be perfect, right? And we can't be honest about the ways that our Black mothers have hurt us and how they have harmed us. And when I'm able to lean deeper into context and understanding how she was raised, how her mother was raised, I can extend grace, right? Context invites me into compassion, and yet I still have to mourn. I have to do my own grieving and mourning. And what really has helped me to lean deeper into forgiveness is like mothering myself. And that's what that last poem, Black Holes, was about. How do I become a mother to myself? How do I become the Black mother that I need to be now? And release my mom of the expectation, because like Jasmine said, I'm a grown-ass woman now. So how do I be the mom that my inner Black girl child needs? And how do I channel ancestral motherhoods to protect and support me as I'm learning how to reparent and how to mother myself?
Wow.
That's a word. That's a whole word. Amen to God. Oh my gosh, girl, yes.
I mean, this is the testimony of the virtuous woman. And that's really, this is my grandmother. Her name's Dorothy Mae Williams from Vicksburg, Mississippi. And, something she really always taught me, she was a mother of her church, about the virtuous woman and the fruit of the spirit, and the qualities of the virtuous woman. And so, oh, thanks, she's stunning. Oh my God, yes. Yeah, no, my granny is hecka cute. Yes, Batty. Okay. So, and this next question is really about, being a virtuous woman and that self-making through all of that context too, and I appreciate what you're saying, Ree, about, context invites me into compassion. And so really this next question is like really pontificating on like your relationship to your Black girlhood and your inner Black girl child, yeah, when Jasmine was like that line, you starting to think you worth something. That's deep because a Black mom can read the hell out of you, when you starting to think you somebody, damn. Well, they really just clock you, and really this is kind of what that question is all about. It's just like that tension between, understanding you're your own personhood and reconciling your relationship with your Black girl. So Reed, I don't know, you just but I don't know, Jasmine, would you like to go first? Okay.
Yeah, that's such a loaded question. So it's a lot, right? Because it's like when you think about, I think there's an interpersonal response and a very Americanized response, a critical response. And that response is like, girlhood needs to be studied and investigated. And I think that that's my charge. That's something that I want to spend some time doing. But like, girlhood for Black women looks very, very different than the girlhood of our white counterparts. Um, and our girlhood is often taken away from us, right? Like people convince us that our bodies are overdeveloped and now we can be sexualized. We're sexualized on television. And because of that, and Black women are assaulted, and there's so, and then these things that, like, to be over sexualized and assaulted is something that, like, probably what one of three women on this Zoom may have an experience with. But then when you go back to like slavery, right, and thinking about like people who were like enslaved, Black folks who were enslaved on this country, and the history of girlhood being stolen from girls and women, and then that goes into how we medically understand our bodies and how we medically view the whole medical field. And so I think it's incumbent upon us all to investigate girlhood, because in order to reclaim girlhood, like, we need to know what we are reclaiming. Because I think that Black women do need to relearn girlhood and a sense of playfulness, right? And so when we talk about, and so like, yeah, let's investigate like the harm and why girlhood is often stolen from Black girls. That needs to be talked about and investigated on so many dynamics, politically, and our entertainment, in so many different spaces, right? And then you think about the inner girl, and you think about like, there, like, I agree, like, there is a little girl inside of me. And I think that there are many, I always say, like, there are many women inside of me. There's a matriarch inside of me. There is an artist inside of me who only cares about art. There's a lover who is hopelessly romantic. And there's this girl. And none of these people ever age. Like, that 85-year-old matriarch stays 85. The little girl stays a little girl. And I think we got this false idea that we grow up, and we don't. Like, that little girl is always there. That's why we sometimes still get mad at our mothers, because it's still there. And how do you honor the little girl within you? And like, yes, we hold ourselves and we talk to ourselves. And I'm thinking, like, if you have all of these women inside of you, you also have multiple voices inside of you. So what are these, how are these women dialoguing inside of you? And they dialogue like the women that we've seen before us. And it's reframing the dialogue of like, if there is truly a little girl inside of you, and you are talking to that girl, what do you say to her? How do you honor her? And then and I activate these ideas in all spaces of like, Jasmine, you didn't eat today. Would you allow a little girl to sit in your house without any food and not notice her? Like, you wouldn't do that to an actual child. When you need to be held, like, oftentimes I realize that we outsource so much love, right? And like, when we need to be held, we literally start texting people to hold us. Or we get angry because we have an expectation for mom to mom at a time where it is inconvenient for whatever reason. And so I literally, when my book came out, I had the worst anxiety and I had panic attacks and all of these different things. And I laid some days in bed holding myself. I felt like this little girl who just exposed herself to the whole world, and I was going to get in trouble for it. I was like, I'm about to get in trouble for all of this. Someone's going to come and beat me. And even though all of that sounds ridiculous to say out loud, I felt it all in my spirit. And I like literally had to rub myself, because I was like, if I had a lover here, if I had a mother here, they would rub me. And so like, I rubbed myself until I fell asleep. And the concept to me would have sounded very ridiculous a few years ago. But the self-soothing and self-healing and honoring that girl is something that we must do, because that is literally the first thing that is stripped from us. Like, that's the one thing that we have in common, is that at some point in our lives, we noticed that girlhood was stripped from us. And then what you were saying about how like you either had the perfect mom, that really hit me, because I was like, yeah, I navigate a space, and my mother has navigated space, and Black women navigate spaces of no pain, and that you don't talk about your pain. And I remember oftentimes I'll say like, Mommy, my stomach hurts. And she'll be like, Mine does too, girl, you'll be all right. And that's that simple thing of my stomach hurt too is a misacknowledgement of that someone is trying to communicate pain to you. And so what I'm learning, I'm going off on a tangent now, but what I'm learning is like deconstructing this concept of we are strong and we got it together, so that we can honor the little girl who does not have anything together. The little girl don't know about that fake whimsical strength. She literally wants to be held and she wants water. And when you talk about like the child, you get to the simplicity of it. It's no longer like deep and metaphorical. It's like hold me, love me, feed me, pay me attention, and good attention. And I think I hope I answered the question.
Always answer the question. Man. Well, Ree, Black girlhood. How you reconcile her every day when you wake up?
Girl, you know this deep for me, because that's really what I was trying to write about. Like, what does it mean to mourn my inner Black girl child? Like, to be sad about all of the ways that she didn't get access to girlhood. But you know, after the book came out, it really was a whole journey of a series of shame, because I just felt like this book is so fucking sad. And there isn't a lot of joy in it. And so I didn't let my inner Black girl child be joyous. There's like one poem about joy in here. And so I've been working on just letting her play more, a lot more. I say that in the introduction, like I'm learning to be in my joy sometimes. Because again, I think I've been in all of these extremes. And when I was writing this book and when I was doing this really dark, intense healing work, it was just like everything was just so intense. And I think I felt very shamed by my family and my community for being this intense person. And I think there's a way that I'm learning to honor my intensity and honor my simplicity at the same time. So since the book came out, I spent a lot of time with Brit. That is my inner Black girl child. And she, you know, my therapist says she's my accountability partner, because she's always like, you said we were gonna do some journaling today and we didn't do it. So like she be, you know, at first it was, I talk about this some on the virtual experience of the book too, the non-dominant handwriting, which is like, you know, a tool to help you connect with the voice of your inner Black girl child. So it started off with us doing some non-dominant handwriting and she started communicating to me, but now she literally just talks to me. So like every morning I wake up, some mornings I forget, but most mornings when I'm being a good mother to my inner Black girl child, we go on a walk in the neighborhood and she talks to me while we walking. And she'll ask me different questions. And something that's been coming up lately is like spiritual harm and spiritual terror. And just the other day, she was asking me like, Mommy, why did everybody lie to me about God? And, you know, so I have to like be ready to like answer her. Like, what do I say to this little Black girl in me who is like grappling with the intensity of the trauma I experienced? And then in the next breath is like, okay, let's go look at the flowers. Can we go pick flowers outside? Let's go paint. Let's go back in the sun. So she's like so complex and so dynamic. And I've just, you know, before I started my inner child healing journey, I had a lot of shame about the little Black girl that I was. You know, I was like goofy, I was chunky, and none of the boys wanted me. You know, I felt like I was, you know, when I was younger, I thought I was cute, but nobody else did. And then when I became an adult, I would look back at my younger years and just be like, oh, I look a mess, you know? And so that was the energy that I was projecting onto this precious, sacred little Black girl being. And so I first had to just start showering her with love. Like, girl, you cute. I love that little outfit you put together. Like, it matched to you, okay? But ain't nobody else think it matched, but it matched to you. So just affirm, like just showering my inner Black girl child with affirmation And in turn, like the closer that me and her are, the closer I am to myself, the more grounded, the more rooted, the closer I am to God, the more full my life becomes, the more accountable I'm able to be to what's true for me. And I fuck up a lot. I fuck up a whole lot, but she's like constantly reminding me of like, she's, tugging on my dress. Don't forget about me, mommy. You said we was gonna play today. I'm like, all right, girl, come on. And then we just have so much fun. And she has literally like lit my whole world up. Like the moment that I started really convening with my inner Black girl child, I feel like my life just expanded. And I love her so much. And again, it's I'm most connected to Brit, but then I got Reese's, right? All the little phases of my Black girlhood too. And I'm learning to honor all of them. I'm most connected at this stage in my healing to like my 8-year-old, my 10-year-old. But the teenager, she had said to me as soon as the book came out, like, you don't think I'm a child too, just because I'm 13? Like, you're further adultifying me by not honoring the fact that I'm a child too. I also am part of the inner Black girl that needs to be reclaimed. So that's where I feel like my healing is directing me to honor the innocence of my 13-year-old, 14-year-old self who lost her virginity at 13. So she wasn't a child no more because she was fucking now. So now you grown. Like all these ways that like I was pushed into being a grown up when I was really just a child. And I'm learning now in my healing process to affirm the sacredness of innocence and youthfulness and childhood of all of those ages. But it's such a journey, y'all. It's such a journey, and it's such a heavy, ongoing journey. But it really is so fruitful and so transformative. The deeper I dive into it.
It's crazy. I never named the women inside of me. I'm gonna do that as like a workshop with myself. I think everybody should do that. If you feel like you have multiple women inside of you, break those women down and give them names. So I'm gonna name my women, but like I see it like as this like inside of me is like a house, and there are multiple women in the house, and sometimes first, all of the women don't even know that they all in the house together. And I often realize I'm like, all of the women don't have to agree, but they have to be in conversation with one another. And when your women are when your women and your girls are in conversation with one another, who talks to who? Where does the resentment lie? Like there's an artist in me that wants to overcompensate because the child didn't get enough attention. And so my child and this adult artist who wants to be a star may legitimately be at odds, because you want to be the star because you received a lack of emotional attention. And so you need the stage because you didn't grow up with the emotional vocabulary that you needed. So you built one and you put it on a stage when you just really wanted your parents to listen. And so there's so many dynamics in us that are legitimately distilled, and it's very important for us to think about, like, how do these girls talk to each other, and do they resent each other? Are they mad at each other? Like the little girls, like, why did you leave me upstairs for so long? Like, you left me upstairs for 8 years and you haven't even come to see me. And like, or the artist in you may feel abandoned by this idea of adulting. And so it's important for us to think about all of these women and then who we've abandoned, because some of these women are mad at us. And when you realize that the women are mad at you, it reflects on the women that you're mad at. And so, yeah, there's so many thoughts here. I'm so inspired.
So many thoughts. Yeah, no, I feel it. I feel it. And that's that's why, 2020 was a crazy year. I think it was like, whoa, and I think I appreciate Reed and, all of the space you've created through Sophology and through your own space to like get us thinking about our vision for the world and our vision for our life. So really this next question, and y'all please direct message Chriselle Jackson if you got a question or post it in the chat. Don't DM me, it's getting too complicated. But please DM Chriselle or put it in the chat your question and then we'll get into it. But really this next question is really, about like, okay, all of these, young girls inside of you are fighting for attention. And I feel that too. Like, as I'm kind of nearing my time in my doctoral program, it's like my inner Kerby is like, girl, like you just gotta bust out on the mic again. I did spoken word in high school and I was an MC and everything. And then I got to college and I was trying to like be a career woman and all of that shit, But now like that inner girl, she is like busting out. She's like, girl, like she just want to freestyle every time. I feel like Issa Rae and Insecure, you know what I'm saying? And so I think it's important to just acknowledge the multiple personalities and normalize that within Black women. I think Black women have been pathologized historically, particularly through the medical industrial complex. And, something I always like to speak on because I've had the privilege of studying at the University of Cape Town. And this library has burned down, the African Studies Library. And it was deep because that's what I had learned. Like, dang, they really kidnapped Black women, studied them, pathologized them to really be the discourse for the new world and in the making of the modern white woman, right? So we are the antithesis of the perfect woman, right? But that's in Western world, right? But in our world and in our cosmologies, what we're attempting to do, these days in that journey to decolonize is build that relationship to home. And not it be a racial paradise, not here or there, not in some mythical landscape. And so really this next question is, how do you reconcile, or contend with or construct your relationship with home, especially as it relates to spirituality and ancestry, thinking about the complexities of our mothers being a byproduct of their era. I really think of my mom and my grandmother, these are era women, when I really think about their lives, I'm like, I always contextualize them in that period, which is why I love Black history, because it gives me that understanding too. And so, yeah, just kind of want to hear your thoughts on that. Jasmine's been going first, so Ree, you wanna go first this time?
Sure. I feel like home is so textured and so layered. I love the title of this book, Black Girl Call Home, because it just brings up so much for me. Like, it sounds like a mother talking to her daughter who's off to college and who don't call no more, which was me, because I didn't barely call my mama when I was at Spelman. I'm sorry, mommy. So it just feels like my mom, like, girl, when you gonna call home? And it feels like old school, like pick up the, you know what I'm saying? The actual handheld phone and do the circles with the numbers, you know what I mean? That's just what it takes me back. And so I'm just thinking about like, thank you, mommy, telephone. I forgot what it was called, y'all. I just thinking about all the homes, you know what I'm saying? Like all the different homes across generations, and reaching. I think a lot about belonging, right? Like finding home and reaching for home. My dissertation is talking about like space making and home making, self-making and world making and life making. And I talk about home girl and what it means to be a home girl, right? And I center my home girls in my work. And in that, it means like I feel at home with you, like you, your energy, your sacredness has become home for me, right? So when I call Kerby my home girl, that's what I mean, like I am safe to be as safe as I would be in my home with you. And so whenever I'm in your presence, I'm at home. So what does it mean for Black girl sisterhood, to become home for us? I also think a lot about like Black feminist interior design in my dissertation. So I kind of write about how like as Black women, when we are making home, the process of curating a physical space to sleep and dream in that process of curation, of interior design, we are simultaneously designing our own interiority, right? The interiors of our own being, and how we force physical spaces to expand for us. And as I am curating this physical location, I'm also curating my own interiority and the conversation between my inner home and my external home, and all of the different layers of home, right? Like a concentric circle almost, that like I have my inner home, I have the home that is my body, I have the home that is my bedroom, I have the home that I share with my husband, right? I have Oakland, right? I don't sadly live in the town no more, but like Oakland really adopted me and embraced me, and I found home and safety in Oakland. But I'm from Philly, right? Okay, shout out to all the Johns on the call. And so for me, repping Philly sometimes feels better than being in Philly, right? So what does that mean to my relationship to that home? And I'm originally from the A. So when it's convenient, I will call Atlanta home. And there's something particularly about having Southern roots, right? And being a Georgia peach that I appreciate when it's convenient. But then when I want to be a Philly John, I'm gonna let you know that too, right? So all these different physical locations, these different cities that made me have shaped what home means to me. And I also have been thinking a lot about the physical house that I grew up in, the house I lived in when I was in Atlanta, the yellow house that we moved to for a few years where I had a lot of heavy memories. When we moved to Philly and I lived in an apartment for the first time. And then when my mom bought her first home in Philly, and all the different physical locations that I lived in, right? In the process of making a house a home, I think about a lot. And I think about home, like my mother's homes, right? When I talk in that poem about maiden names, like La Plaza, Louisiana, like New Orleans, Detroit, the places that my mother found home in, I feel really embraced and loved by when I'm there as well. But then Kerby, what you're bringing us to is like diasporic homes. And so I feel like there's pieces of diaspora, of ancestral remnants in each and every one of these cities. Like the way that Blackness maps itself onto every city I ever lived in, every place that grew me, there's a calling home, right, in the way that we be as Black folks, as Black women. And so it makes me think about ancestral presence as well, and how present our ancestors, and for me particularly, like Black women, how present Black women ancestors have been with me throughout my process of moving through homes, and how Blackness and its assertion onto cities invites us deeper into the home of our own communal and collective Blackness and Black womanhood too.
Jesus. Wow. Thank you so much, Ree. Jasmine, how do you respond to that? Designing your own interiority, that home space.
Yeah, I agree with all of those sentiments. And when I was investigating home, it was the home within and it was the home outside. And the outside home was my physical home that I grew up in. And then it was also the world, navigating home within the world. I actually like put a little map at the back of this book where it was different, like getting home, and it said like home, the womb, the child, the mother, then it's like home, leaving home, finding home. And so I think we touched on home a bit when we talked about the women inside of us, the women that they live in a home, right? And then you have to then think of, I think it's multifaceted, right? Where it's just like the first thing I think about is my mother and her womb, that was the first home. And then I think about the home of which I grew up in and the dynamics of family and the dynamics of not just my mother, but my father and their marriage, and how their marriage has shaped the mother that she is, and my brothers. Um, and then you think about this world. How is this world a home to you, and how can you build a home in this world, and what does it mean to leave? And I think we have a good understanding of home when we think about all of the places that we left. Um, and I've had homes within the arms of women who were no longer homes. I've had homes within my mother, and it didn't feel like home. And so, and I want to go back to the home girl, because it was like, I just noticed that it's like, it's not home woman, it's home girl. So when you say like, I feel safe, you also saying like, I feel safe, I feel at home with being a girl. And what's so interesting is that white girls don't say that. That's not a white girl thing to say. Black women say home girl. And in a time where we want to reclaim girlness, to have that word and to deconstruct home and girl, and to be that you're my home girl. I can be at home and I can be a girl in this space, is such a dynamic claiming. And so home is just this like literal mess of so many things. And it's abstract, but it's abstract and it's concrete. And I think about oftentimes the abandonment of, and I think it speaks so deeply to how we activate our inner selves as women. When have I abandoned myself? When have I felt abandoned? When have I felt robbed? And it's like when people come into your house and take your shit, but also when people come into you and take your shit. And then I um, I was thinking of the sergeant of arms, that like in different communities, and you have a sergeant at arms, someone who is there to protect the door. Like that's their literal job, to sit at the door and to guard who comes in and who comes out. And I'm learning, like when I'm building these women inside of me and within this home, that one of the women is supposed to stand guard and protect the other women. And that I didn't know that I needed a sergeant to protect my home. And so like that's the within, and then the outside, it's like I've never even thought about like the interior, and thinking about the self-design, but that it makes you think about Melissa Harris Perry, and she has this crooked room theory, and it's in Sister Citizen, one of the books she wrote. And it's like uh, Black women, I'm going to butcher it, so don't, it's not verbatim, but Black women are in this crooked room. Everything is crooked because society has already established for us who we are. And so the house, right, in our home, everything is legitimately tilted sideways. And if everything is tilted sideways and it has always been crooked, you think that crooked is right. Until you have experiences, real life experiences that are detached from that house, that aligns you. And once you start becoming in alignment, you realize that everything around you is crooked, and now you got to start straightening everything in the house. And it makes me think about the interior of like, what are the crooked things that are in my home that were already here before I got here? And how do I unlearn or redecorate so that it is representative of the uprightness that I want to represent home. And it's interesting because I'm like newly 30, and I'm like building my own home. And so as a woman, as a queer woman, as a Black woman, we think about safety, we think about protection, we think about love, we also think about peace and joy, the same things that we want in the internal, we also want in our external. And the question becomes, how do we control that and activate those dynamics for ourselves? The dynamic of safety, the the dynamic of love without external resources, without needing a somebody, whether that somebody is a mother or partner. But yeah, those are my like jumbled thoughts on home.
Wow. Wow. I love it. Look at that. Return of the African matriarchy. We out here. That's kind of been my 2021 theme. Um, return of the repressed, return of the African matriarchy, returning to that alignment. And I think I just appreciate y'all's answers. So now getting into audience questions. We queued up some questions, but last round, if you have a question, send it to Chriselle right now, and I'll try to blend the final question. But first question, Alexis Mayfield, do you want to come off of mute and ask it?
Hi, y'all. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a big fan of Reel and Jasmine, and both of them have inspired lots of my poetry. So I have a poetry kind of form question, and the other question I had was talking about home and how you create that space when you think of creating home with a romantic partner. And I think that sometimes as I am in a home space with my romantic partner, I find myself mimicking things that I did not like that I observed in my mother. And I think that I see that in interpersonal, like in my romantic relationships, regardless of gender, like whether I am like anybody on the spectrum, however they identify. I think sometimes I start doing what my mom does or did, even though that bothered me. And so I wanted to know about how your Black girlhoods influence the homes that you create with people and lovers, and I think y'all touched on like homegirls, and I really appreciate that because I do find such home in them. But like also too on my spiritual journey, I'll be inviting my like foremothers and stuff, but I don't really be talking to the men. I don't. It's like y'all. I don't really invite them into the space, but I know that like as someone who my current partner is a cishet man, like there needs to be some sort of reconciliation with that invitation, to think about my own Black girlhood and transitioning into womanhood and how I create space and home. So I don't know where my question is, but like, how do you do that? How do you make sense of that? And then my question about form is like, both of y'all seem to leave space for like, as I read it, it feels like breath or fragments. So you like do double periods, like you do two instead of just one. And so it's not quite an ellipses, it's not quite a like full on continuation, but the two implies a breath, not an abrupt finality. And then Jasmine, you have these like pages that are in a different font. They're just like one line. And it kind of even looks a different color, and they sit alone and they don't have a title. And so it feels like I don't know if fragments is it, but like trails of thoughts, or you're leaving breathing room. And so I wanted to know about that in your process of creation. So feel free to answer whatever one speaks to you more. Thank you so much.
Well, when it comes to form, I think we all should maintain the just being students of the craft, because I think all of the forms that I take on in the book were me just playing around as a student of the craft. That like I create, as a writer, I create syllabi. And so my book had a syllabus, and I wrote a list of all of the things I would ever want to talk about. Then I wrote a list of things that I know I want to talk about, but that I don't know shit about. And then I wrote a list of the books that I would have to read to talk about those things. And then I made a deadline for when I was going to talk about those things. But then it's like there's the idea and there's also form. That so many times as writers, right, we have an idea and we free write. But you can have an idea and you have form. So I was like, I'm going to talk about Sandra Bland, but I'm going to talk about it as a haiku. And I want to talk about a girl's mother cursing her out for getting stopped by the police. But what if we wrote it like a monologue? Um, And then some lines are just one line because it's all it needed to be. And so I'm so imperfect, but you can be imperfect because you are a student of the craft. And there are 1,000 different forms to play around with in poetic thought. And I wanted to not only get out my ideas, but I also wanted to represent forms so that there was like dimensions and there was this like sort of variation of texture. And so that's like what I sought to do. So like some things feel random but I hope that it creates a fluidity, that fluidity is not still. And one thing that I wanted for Black Girl Call Home when it came to form is it not to be flat. I didn't want it to fall flat. I didn't want it to just be words going down a page. I wanted the words to be intentional, and I wanted the development of form to be intentional. And then when it comes to home, I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Love you, sis. Thank you so much for being here and coming through with the 2-part layered. Okay, thank you for giving us some things to think about. Yeah, so I could start too with form. You know, I just kind of had this epiphany. I've been in a process with this book. Like since it came out, I'm always like, oh, I should have did this, should have did that. But I'm just like, something I always say to myself, I can only write from where I am. So this book is where I was in this phase of my life. I'm not even in the same phase anymore as where I was when I wrote this. And so I have a lot of like processes inside of me about like, it is exactly what it was supposed to be from that place in my life. And then the next book will be from this phase of my life. So I'm learning to make peace with that. But a big thing that I felt like, oh, I should have did in this book was just put breathe, literally just huge, all caps, just the whole page after everything, because this book is so heavy. I've carried a lot of shame about like, I don't know if I properly like supported Black women in their process of reading all this heavy shit. So I appreciate you, sis, talking about the 2 dots, because I really was trying so hard to like put some breathing room in here, because it's like, it's suffocating how heavy these poems are. Even this part, sis, like when I just wrote inner child healing for Black women with Black girls inside them, this was an attempt at like, you see all this space, sis, just go ahead and breathe, you know. But I really, for my next books, that's something that I'm feeling like I want to do. Just put breathe between every piece, just to remind us, because breath work is like so healing, and it brings us back to our physicality. Like when you're reading about trauma and shit, so often we can like disassociate, you know what I'm saying? So I think that like just encouraging breath. I'm really grateful that you're affirming that that's what you felt in your process of journeying with this, because it helps me to know that like, even though I didn't consciously like put in breath work in the actual text of the book, that you were still able to get that. So I appreciate you for that. I play with dots a lot throughout the book, like throughout the poems and stuff. And girl, yeah, that question about, you had me thinking about so much with that. Yeah, so, you know, me and my husband just moved to a new place and I love it. And just really have been thinking a lot about like, how are we making a home together? I think that in an earlier phase of my life, I felt myself kind of replicating certain things, particularly like codependence. That's been a huge, that really was kind of where I first started into doing my 12-step work, which I write about in the book. But like doing Codependence Anonymous, like having to be honest about the fact that like, I suffer from being a codependent, like, and that had been the foundation of how I experience romance, intimacy, and relationships. And I do think that was something that was learned across generations of the women in my family. And I think, honestly, so many of us are, because that's the way we've been taught to relate to our romantic partners as women, especially as Black women. So I think codependency was I'm definitely still healing actively from this, but I've made a lot of progress just acknowledging the learned behavior of codependence. And when you started talking too about like ancestral presence, that's something that I be hella thinking about. I'm continuing to think about. And it just hit me when you said that, like, yeah, because I really only think about Black women, like I have a husband who is a man, but I really think, and I think it's something about it feels like selfish because I feel like ain't nobody thinking about us. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like I'm gonna be so fucking unapologetic about all I do is us, but that just hit me. I'm like, I don't even be thinking about the Black men who are my ancestors. You know what I'm saying? Because and that's not to say that they don't have something to teach me, but that's just not where I'm at right now in my process. But it just occurred to me, even when you said, like, how would that enhance or support my marriage? If I was open to that, I hadn't even thought about that. So I don't know, that's just something for me to sit with. But yeah, I feel very, very connected to, and Jasmine, when you were talking about these multiple women, that's kind of what I was putting in the chat. Like, are these women ancestors? Are these ancestral voices too? Because we have our inner voices, and then we have like ancestral voices that are kind of like inner and outer at the same time. It's like the Black women aunties whose names I don't know, who be speaking to me in collective conversation. And then like the folks who recently passed away, like my friend Braxton or Janine, or like all these other voices that I'm hearing that's not mine. And then all the voices in me are having multiple conversations with all of these other voices, some of which I know and recognize, and many of which I don't. But for me, that experience has been primarily with Black women and Black girls. Yeah, but girl, you just gave us so much to sit with and think about. So thank you, sis, for that hella rich question. I appreciate you.
Thanks for your answer. I appreciate you in hella ways.
No, thank you. Thank you. Man, we are just, we just need to run the world, right? So this has been so beautiful and so enriching. And this is just the beginning, it's not the end, please stay connected with Reelaviolette Bottts-Ward. I gotta get used to that last name. She's like, I'm married now, from the Colored Purple. So yeah, that's Miss Reelaviolette Bottts-Ward. Okay, let it be known. That's also Miss Jasmine Mans. Okay, so please support these Black women creators. Please follow their work. Follow them on social media. I think they'll put their work in their stuff in the chat. Also follow me. Stay up with your girl. I'm Butch Brood out here. We out here. Kerby Lynch. Black women creatives. We out here. Because it's time for us to really come together and just think with each other, heal with each other. And so I know that Ree is so committed to that, and that's why I'm committed to this mission too. So to like close us out, to really think about it, if Jasmine and Ree can give us some like parting words. I kind of want to combine all the questions I just got, so if it sounds a little muddled, and sorry to all y'all who sent questions, but I think this is good. So to start it off, so Jasmine had this quote. She said, "I resent my mother for the sacrifices she has made on my behalf." This person asked, how do we healthily forgive our mothers, but still honor our own traumas? There's a lot of people who ask the question about, do you feel like having conversations with your mothers has been important, enlightening, and healing to your journey? because another person had some questions about how do we have boundaries with allowing people into our home. And so I think, if we could all just, leave some parting words with the audience, it's like, how do we respect ourselves, our complexity, but also our traumas, our lineage, and all of it, So, some parting words for the folks before they go. And yeah, but for real, respond to that. So I'm gonna say, who's gonna go first? Y'all just pick. Okay. Okay, Miss Jasmine Mans. No, actually, Ree, you go. Or no, actually, y'all pick. Y'all pick. Because honestly, y'all both could drop the mic.
I be wordy. I'm gonna just say a few words. Go ahead, Jasmine.
I was going to say, I don't want to be too long-winded, but I met a woman maybe 2 years ago because we were in the same poetry book. We wrote something, and she was like this, I think she's a 60-year-old woman, and she immediately called me daughter. And she was like, "You're my daughter." And it was this Black woman who I met by way of art and words. And I never had a woman or a mother like that who knew me like that. And like who knew me intimately like that. Like, and I'm telling you that like God blessed me with another mother. So much so that like when my grandmother passed away, before she passed away, I texted this one because my mother, my real mother, right? She's actually losing her mother. My mother is crazy, like she's falling apart. And I texted my art mom, and I said, "I think I'm losing my grandmother." And she said, "I'm on my way." And my grandmother actually like passed away within that hour. And my art mom drove me to my real mom. And on the drive over to my real mom, she told me about how I should take care of my real mom. And I say this to say that, one, like, we are not without, that the things that we desire in this world, no matter what you believe, if you call on those things, that you will receive those things. And I know who my mama is, right? We're gonna always know who our mothers are. But God offered me somebody that was going to fulfill something in me at this stage in my life that I deeply needed. And so my parting words are, we are not without, that we seek where we have deficits, we find where we have deficits, we seek prayer and guidance, and we will receive. And I deeply believe in that. So thank y'all.
Wow. I just want to say thank you, honestly. Thank y'all so much for being here and just continuing to send y'all prayers of healing and restoration. Yeah, y'all, because y'all know I be wordy, so I don't even want to start no tangent. I just want to say thank y'all. Thank you, Jasmine, so much for just blessing us with your wisdom. Thank you, Kerby, for holding it down on the moderation, sis. And thank you to each and every one of y'all for being here. So appreciate it.
Yeah, well, that's all, folks. This has been beautiful, a dream come true. I get to meet my childhood icon. Like, I feel like I can cross something off the bucket list. And I'm so grateful for the circumstance of this pandemic to allow us to just be together in this capacity. It's so cool to be connecting with people in Philly, down south, in the east, and all over Cali. Like, it's so beautiful, our diaspora. And so, please stay in contact. This is just a beginning. Ray is building such a beautiful platform. So, we're only going to go to the moon from here. Again, thank you. And yeah, I just invite you all to just unmute yourselves and give one just round of applause for our beautiful warrior today.
Woo! Woo! So much. Thank y'all so much. So much love to y'all.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you, Mommy. Love you, Mommy.
Yes.
Love you. Love you. Aw. Yeah, here we go. We're just gonna go out with it.
Rock out with some little tunes.
Yeah. What was you gonna play? I know you heard.
You're like, you know, I be playing some healing music, but okay, this healing too. And
Still drunk. I'm drunk as hell. He fuck Chanel. He be giving